I'm Matt Carey, documentary editor at Deadline, and we are in the Deadline studio at Sundance with the filmmakers of Girl State. We are with Amanda McBain and Jesse Moss. Great to be with you.
Hi, Matt. We're happy to be here.
Hey, Matt.
It was 4 years ago, I guess, where you premiered Boy State, which looked at this exercise in mock government, and in that case took place in Texas. But now we have the distaff side of the equation. Tell me about Girl State. It's in a different state, but a similar opportunity for young women to explore the political process.
The word distaff wasn't in my vocabulary till a couple of days ago. I actually had to look it up, believe it or not, but I'm glad to hear it invoked. I'm going to use it all the time now. And no, it's really a project that we contemplated from the beginning. When we were researching Boy State, we actually reached out to the Texas Girl State program, and we weren't sure where we would end up, but we were interested in young people coming of age in this political moment. And of course, we ended up with the boys in Texas. And but even before the film was out in the world, we thought we have to make a sibling. It's not a sequel; it's a sibling, and they're related. They share DNA. But we wanted this project to sort of be what it is and to be different and to allow ourselves to kind of go in the directions that it led us and not to sort of impose some sort of sequel constraints on it. And that led us to Missouri, which is a interesting, complicated state. It's got St. Louis and Kansas City and Cori Bush, but it's also got Josh Hawley. So it sort of embodies all of America's contradictions. And for that reason, a great political landscape. Also, it's got a big girl state program, 500 girls. They have a Supreme Court. And the year that we filmed 2022, they were going to run concurrently with the boys state program. And that was going to be interesting. We didn't know where that would take us. And we were fearful in some ways, but because we want this film to be about the girls and what they're going through. But of course, that's unscripted filmmaking. It takes you in surprising directions.
Tell me about some of the young women in the film. I mean, it does give one hope that these are super smart people who are engaged, informed, and so that is certainly one element of the film and a takeaway, if you will, that there's some impressive young people out there. And great to see young women and some of them are like, I'm running for president in 2040.
Right.
So they're planning ahead.
Right. So we have a bigger cast this time, which is partly the result of there being so many extraordinary young women in Missouri who we interviewed, and it was hard to whittle it down, to be honest. But one of the women that we met from the minute she started talking to us said, I'm going to run for president in 2040. I'm going to do that. And I hadn't ever heard somebody say that to me who was 17 years old, let alone a girl, and she was undaunted. And as Jesse was saying, we did not want to make Boy State starring girls. That film was sort of, I felt satisfied with what we explored in that film with Boyhood, but also with exploring electoral politics, right? What we do to win an election. And this was about something else. This was about representational democracy and what kind of headwinds women feel, both sort of what they've internalized and what happens institutionally. So that was an exploration I knew I wanted to do, but more importantly, I really needed to find those kids. We needed to find those kids who we wanted to go on the journey with, and that we spent a lot of time finding them before the event started.
And like in Boys Day, I mean, they're so compelling and interesting. So you do a magnificent job of selecting people who just hold your interest, from the moment you see them on screen, and they are super impressive, as I say. Interesting time that you were filming, I guess around May of 2022, because at that time the Dobbs versus Jackson leaked opinion came out. This was ultimately the ruling where Roe v. Wade was overturned, the case where it was overturned. So of course, needless to say, that was very much on the mind of these young politicians. And so that did wind up becoming a big part of the film in a sense.
Well, what's so unusual and exceptional about these programs, what's so interesting for us as filmmakers, is they concentrate these forces in American life, and we see them within the program. And so it was in some ways no surprise that abortion becomes a profound issue that the young women are thinking about and confronting. It's a case that the Girl State Supreme Court hears for themselves to see young women take ownership of that argument, that conversation, is really startling and striking. It's you hear it expressed in the film, decisions that have been made largely by men for them, and now we see them taking ownership, and that was really profound and quite moving, and different political viewpoints represented, but it's kind of coursing through that community of girls, what is happening in the country, also the divisions that plague us. This is something we're all concerned about. Where is our country headed? How divided are we? Will we heal? And I think what we discovered in these young women, these ambitious, confident, but also vulnerable young women, is there's sort of great hope and positivity in their leadership, in their courage, in their conviction. They are undaunted. When they are defeated, which some of them are, I won't tell you which ones, they rise again. And to see that in a kind of dark moment of our country really filled us with hope. And I think we felt that at Sundance. All 8 of our girls were here in force, and they are a force.
Yeah, and one of the interesting, and we don't want to necessarily compare it to Boys State, because you say it's very important that it stand on its own, just in the way that the young women need to stand on their own. They don't need to be compared to men, but there are fascinating differences for those who have seen Boys State, and particularly I think of how supportive, by and large, the young women are, and I don't recall that so much with the boys. So that is a notable thing, and something one would like to see more in politics and just life in general, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel to me they were more collaborative earlier on, but I don't know how much of that was also the differences of the way the programs work. So in Texas, it's really set up so there's this tribal face-off from within like 4 seconds of getting there. And so there's that piece of it. I do think that there was a collective anxiety because of the Dobbs. I mean, that was part of the reason we went to Missouri too. It is another red state where the trigger law were going to go into effect. So that particular Supreme Court decision was going to affect that state more than, say, California, right? So there was a kind of group vibe to begin with. There were a lot of differences for sure, but I think the most notable one, by the way, people would say to me, "Oh, you guys are making Girls State catfight," and I thought that was a really interesting like trope, like in fact, Mean Girls is kind of a construction, and in fact, girls tend to want to listen to one another, and that's what we saw. Anecdotally, that's what we saw in this session at Missouri Girls State.
Yeah, that's
Well, we didn't expect it to be a conversation about Boys State, but because these programs are happening in parallel, it's kind of parallel play, the girls begin to question, how are the boys doing it? Are they doing it differently? Do they have more resources? Do they have different expectations? Are they given different expectations about how they should behave politically? And the girls begin to ask these questions in the film, and I think they're really questions that are asked societally, and that, I think, is what makes the film a kind of perfect metaphor for where we are as a country. And to see these young women kind of confront both the internal obstacles but also these external constraints is, I think, a really potent part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, and part of the challenge too in putting it together, because the programs were on the same campus at the same time, Boys State and Girls State. For us, we had to be careful as storytellers, like you can't put too much Boys State in here. This is a film about Girls State, right? But they are seeing this program over there, and so how much do you put in? When does it become too much?
Yeah, and again, if it wasn't happening on the same campus, you probably wouldn't have gone in that direction. But it was sort of, you couldn't ignore it in a sense, and the girls were not ignoring it either. So you're reflecting that in that sense. As followers of your career know, you won the Emmy for Boys State, which was with Apple TV, and Girls State is with Apple TV. So when can people see that on the platform? Do you know at this point?
Well, we couldn't have a better partner in Apple. The film will premiere on Apple TV on April 5th, and but also we're planning a robust engagement campaign to bring young people together to the film. I mean, one of the great things about Boys State is teenagers watched it, and parents watched it with their kids, and it's kind of a miracle to make a movie that I think 2 generations can connect with, and in this way, or at least a documentary, and so Apple's going to support, I think, a robust engagement to bring young people to the conversation. And whoever you are as a young woman, I think you can see yourself in this film. We have 2 teenage daughters. Actually, our 14-year-old gave some notes on a rough cut, good notes actually. But we said, "Who's your favorite character?" And she picked out Faith. And I love that girls, wherever they come from in the political spectrum, whatever their background, I think they can find somebody to be inspired by, to identify with in this film.
Faith is fascinating, very unapologetic, direct character. And it's like, wow. But they're all compelling. And well, the film is Girls State, and we've been with the filmmakers Jesse Moss and Amanda McBain. Congratulations on premiering at Sundance, and thanks for being with us.